Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being here at our very first ever LAC Summit. It is day 6, and we have our last day and our last session of learning and sharing with schools from the collaborative. And before we jump in and introduce our next speakers, I just want to take a moment and tell you a little bit more about this summit and why we're doing it. So my name is Emma Burns, and I am the Professional Learning Coordinator at Consilience Learning. And we're the organization that runs the Learning Analytics Collaborative, who's sponsoring this event. And one thing I can tell you from looking at this group of people is the collaborative really brings everybody together from all over the world. We were just having a catch up. We've got people in Thailand, people in Saudi, people in India, and they're all here to celebrate the learning and growth that happens when we build these cultures of data. So if any of you aren't already aware, I want to let you know a little bit about the Learning Analytics Collaborative. And if you've got any questions after this, please reach out and we can organize a demo call. Our mission is to support you to build these cultures of data use. We really believe that data can make an impact on student learning, on student outcomes, on teaching and learning, and on schools themselves. And so we support schools to do that. We start by collecting all the data that you have in your school. And as you'll see in this talk, I know it's not just the academic data. It's all the other pieces of data, including well-being data, demographic data that goes into understanding those students. And we collaborate with every school to figure out the best way to present that data as information. Then we also teach the users how to use that information. So we have a huge library of protocols and tools that faculty can use to gain insight about your curriculum and your learners. So we have over 100 visualizations in the platform, and each one of them is customized to answer the questions that schools have. And we have views for teachers who want to see their classes at a snapshot and line up different assessments to triangulate them. We have dashboards for specialists, so learning supports teachers, for example, who want to understand the impact of their interventions. We have high-level dashboards for administrators, boards of directors, HR teams to see that high-level data. And we have dashboards for parents and students to zoom in and see an individual student's learning over time. We're all about sharing the learning. So we have over 50 schools from all over the world in our collaborative. And when one school develops a new protocol or a new assessment visualization, we share that information with other schools because that way everyone can learn and everyone can grow. So we publish case studies, we share protocols that schools have developed, and we even now have a virtual summit where schools can come and share. And I'm really excited to present our next speakers who are going to be sharing their story. Faye Fraser is currently the assistant head of secondary at the British International School in Riyadh. And Priya Ramteke is the head of middle school at Oberoi International School. And I met these guys about 6 months ago, was it? In Delhi, where they presented at the Data in Schools conference. And it was so great to see what they're doing to really help their teachers understand the complete story about a student using data. So I'm delighted to hear from them today. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you so much, Emma. Okay, let me share my screen and then it's over to you, Priya.
And I'm going to drop some resources in the chat. Should I do that now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool.
Okay, thank you so much, Emma, for that very warm introduction. I'm sort of really happy, delighted to be here, to be presenting this workshop with my wonderful colleague, Faye Fraser. We are soul sisters. Let that be recorded. What and all. Okay. So essentially, our data story is about safety, is about vulnerability, is about sharing, and really it's about futures thinking and developing a data legacy mindset. And so hopefully, we are going to, walk away teaching you something and learning something from you, because both are critical aspects of our journey. So our journey started essentially with building a data culture at OIS, because we didn't have a data culture at OIS. And when we started unraveling the pieces of the data, we really thought about what is data just numbers, or is data beyond numbers? And I think that is the question we kept asking ourselves in terms of data can be more than just numbers, and data is also emotions, because the people that get those numbers are essentially driven by their feelings, thoughts, and emotions. And we supported each other. We attended a lot of professional development workshops and really dug for information about how people were looking at data differently. So this quote is essentially from a workshop that Faye and I did together, and it spoke about looking at data beyond numbers. And it said data is not just those numbers, but it's actually motivation, cognition, and attention. So when you look at all of your students' data as a whole, it creates a story not just about them, but also about your teaching practice and also about your school. Yeah. Okay. So here we're attempting to see how we're going to connect the dots and really complete the story of us as school teachers, as leaders, and also of our students. Okay, I think the first thing we realized that was in order to create an authentic story, in order to create authenticity around learning and around data, we had to move to a space of psychological safety. So we invited everybody to participate in our group called Great Ideas Group, the Data Culture Force. And I think the premise of the group was, we don't know everything. We're not, please don't see us standing on this pedestal where we know everything. We don't know. That's why we have this group. And essentially really creating a safe space for everybody to share their vulnerability and share their honesty and share their not knowing about data or how to carry on this data journey together. So we built a culture where everybody was able to share their ideas openly, based on trust, based on really being genuine, that I don't know, but I'm eager to learn. I don't know, I really need help. Help me out here. And I think each one of us modeled that and transferred that attribute, hopefully, to our teachers and eventually to our students. So we built a culture where we were learning from each other, learning from failure. Everybody was open to share ideas. And really, there was comfort in admitting mistakes. There was comfort in admitting that we don't know everything that we want to do. Okay. And I think what really helped us was we kept projecting that this wasn't about us. It wasn't about teachers. It really was students, keeping students at the heart of everything that we did. I think in our work, we were influenced by many authors and many resources. And I think one critical influence of our journey was this book that we read together around 2 or 3 years ago. It was called Creating Fearless Organization by Amy C. Edmondson. And she talks about how we can create a culture of thriving success and in our schools by enabling people to ask questions openly, by enabling people to sort of step outside their comfort zone. So this is an exercise we often did in our school, in terms of how can we move. First of all, how can we recognize when we're in the anxiety zone? How can we recognize when we're in the apathy zone? And what strategies can we use for ourselves and for our teachers and for our students to move away from the apathy zone, to move away from the anxiety zone and arrive at the learning zone? Okay. And I think we kept reminding ourselves that school life and schools can throw us challenges that make us uncomfortable. It's not a regular rigid pattern at school. There are energy waves. There are things that happen in school and in our lives that can throw us off balance and off key. So we are not always in the comfort zone. We're not always in the learning zone. We've got to recognize that. We've got to be self-aware of that and be able to support each other, not just to self-regulate, but also deal with that negative emotion and move that to a positive emotion. So we sort of kept saying to people, what do you feel? Are you feeling anxious? Is it apathy? Is it comfort? How can we together move towards the learning zone? Okay, and I think that really was critical piece of the information, that anxiety can be converted into a positive emotion if you start from a journey of self-awareness and help each other to move towards a learning zone.
Another influential woman on our journey was, of course, Brené Brown. And before we started our, I guess, our expedition into creating psychologically safe environments within our school, we really had to look at, as Brené Brown talked about, shame, and where does shame come from? So we really understood that students felt shame around grades and around their own kind of self-worth, and they attached those grades to their self-worth. We perhaps created a shame or had a shame culture in school around people not feeling like they were performing well enough, or that we didn't understand each other's backgrounds or kind of their stories. And so what Brené Brown says, that if we can douse shame with empathy, and if we can try and understand the whole picture, not just of the students, but of our families and of our colleagues and of ourselves, as Priya was saying about self-awareness, if we can have empathy for all those things, that shame cannot survive. And when you get rid of shame, people can thrive, and they can exist in these safe environments, psychologically safe environments, to ask questions, to take risks, to make mistakes, fully knowing that nothing terrible is going to happen. So Priya talked about our Great Ideas group, and essentially we created a group of people, which was initially only 8 people, where we used data as our supernatural power. I think by the time my time was up at Oberoi, I think, Priya, we got to over 40 people in the room, which was fantastic. It's a low stakes kind of working group, I guess, teaching and learning group, where we would come together and everybody was equal. There wasn't any one person that kind of knew everything. The whole purpose was to learn from each other. So we were really fortunate to work with Matthew Savage. We had the budget for him to come and work with our middle leaders, our grade leaders and department leaders. And essentially we see our middle leaders as our engines of change. And actually they are the people that are not only still frontline in terms of teaching and with their feet on the ground and understanding our students' needs, but they also hold the keys to our colleagues and to our teams. So we looked at how can we triangulate all the data that we have. For example, how can we take students' abilities and aptitudes, their achievements and progress, their attitudes and well-being? How can we triangulate all that data to try and point us in the direction of supporting them the way that they need to be supported, the way that they personally need that help, that guidance and that advice? We also looked at taking mentoring data that form tutors would collect within their homeroom times. We looked at any kind of anecdotal data that we might have from reports or from student meetings or parent meetings, and just how can we move this into action to make sure that everybody feels like they are supported in our environment. The next piece was that we had the Cambridge release the article about the futures of assessment, and our middle leaders ran incredible professional development sessions with all of our colleagues at the school, and they used different forms of data, different ways of analyzing data, utilizing data, but also thinking about what the push of the present, the pull of the future, and the weight of history, because we need all 3 parts for us to understand where are we going and why are we heading there in this manner, in this direction, and why are we doing the things that we are doing, keeping purpose and keeping students at the forefront of everything that we were trying to achieve.
Okay, so building on to what Faye said, I think we also realize that data is not about data is not about one person being in charge, but we really need to have deliberate, intentional practice of setting up a system, setting up a process that can be sustainable. Okay, One thing we do realize that in international schools, people are constantly moving. There's always a churn, okay? How can we set up mindsets, paradigm shifts that can be sustainable for the long term? So how can the work that we put in into the context and into the culture of the school, how can that continue? And how can people build on that layer and build on that foundation? So our hope really with next steps with this journey was we've laid a strong foundation in terms of changing the culture to a data-driven, a data-conscious, a data-mindful, a data-informed culture. But how can that legacy, how can this be maintained for the long term? And I think as learners, as educators, we keep striving to learn more and do more and find out what's happening in the world out there in terms of pedagogy. How is neuroscience and brain research supporting what we are learning and how our students are learning? So we keep doing that, right? And I think the latest changes in technology and the emergence of AI really pushed us to think about, okay, what next, right? And we all know that we have to sort of really think beyond the box in terms of how we approach teaching and learning in 2024 and how we approach assessments in 2024. And I think this article that we read together in terms of an educational odyssey of 2050, it really sort of builds a picture in terms of how assessments should look like in 2050. So that also really provoked our thinking and inspired us. And I think added to that was another layer of this book that we just read called The Good Ancestor. We've taken a graphic from the book, and I would like you to sort of just think about what the book is talking about, and the scope of what this author says is just, it was just sort of perspective shifting and mind-boggling for me when we first started out. So essentially, the author says, since we started calculating numbers and since the creation of the planet Earth, we've had 100 billion people that have already died on the planet, okay? Currently, all of us number up to 7.7 billion. So we are currently in the living generation where on planet Earth, we have 7.7 billion accounted for. But if we were to look into the future, based on the UN estimate, there will be 6.75 trillion people on planet Earth, okay? If you look at the data. Now, those numbers are sort of quite just mind-boggling. And if you look at that orange circle compared to the gray circle and the little smaller, the green circle, it's quite something. It's quite profound. It's quite life-changing. It was for me anyway. And I think the question then we kept asking ourselves is, okay, who are we really teaching and what are we actually teaching for? Okay. And I think the question that we have to ask ourselves as leaders, as educators, as human beings is, are we being selfish or are we being selfless? Are we being really terrible, horrible, bad ancestors, or are we being good ancestors? Okay. So keeping those figures in mind and keeping the scale and the magnitude of what the author is trying to project to us and explain to us, and keeping in mind that how technology and how AI is going to influence us and the students we teach and the unborn generations from now on, what I would like to do is I would like people to get into Zoom groups and answer this question for us. Okay, and we'll discuss the responses after in about, how much time have we got? In about 7 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. The
5
two
to 7
resources are in the chat.
Okay.
So you guys can access the resources.
Yeah.
Let me just put you into breakout rooms.
So you're keeping this data in mind. What will be your data legacy is the question we want you to discuss. Okay. So we're putting you in groups, 5 minutes. I think people have joined, Faye. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. What you were saying, I'll mention this at the end, but what you were saying about that trust and getting teachers to trust
Yeah.
what we're doing. That's what I realized, because I've always said like they have to believe in what we're doing, but they also have to trust us. And
Absolutely.
Matt Lennon talked about that a lot yesterday. They spent ages developing data norms, and then like making such a concerted effort to abide by those data norms. So like when they're doing teacher evaluations, like never looking at student data in the teacher evaluations, because that's one of their norms, and just like walking the walk, and being like, yeah, no, this is about the students, and you can trust us that like we'll use it safely.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it, it now the teachers are using it and running their own data meetings, and yeah.
I think that when data is used as a stick, like it, you just become everything becomes a box ticking exercise. And then what is the point? We're just serving ourselves. You're actually becoming selfish, because you're
Yeah.
just looking out for number one rather than what am I doing that's going to, potentially impact every single person, not just the kids actually, but what I learned at OIS was the power of families, the power of community. And actually, it's only when you get that sense of we're in this together. It is not, us versus you. It is not the kids versus the parents. It's not, it genuinely is all of us in it together. You can achieve anything you actually set your mind to be honest. And it's only through data that you can get there, I guess. You can't just pluck it out of thin air. You have to kind of know where you are and know where you want to get to. But I just felt really fortunate that Priya and I had that sense of trust, I guess, from the minute we met each other. So it meant that when we were planning this adventure, there was no judgment. I never felt like there was judgment even between us. And I think it's that I always say to the kids, like, what your weakness is somebody's strength in the class, and that's okay, right? Because if we all had the same weaknesses and the same strengths, the world would not spin. It'd be an absolute nightmare. And I think as leaders, it's really important to kind of go into meetings, have these agendas for meetings that are looking at, I'm really struggling here with this and this and this. Who can help me? And can we do it together? And I think that if colleagues can see that in a leadership team, they're much more likely to get on board. And then,
Is that my internet or Faye's? We just lost you for a second. Was that Priya? Do you know, was that me or Faye that kicked out?
I think it was Faye. Faye. Okay.
Me. Am I back in?
Yes, you're back.
You're good. Just a glitch.
So, yeah. No, it was a fun journey, wasn't it, Priya?
Very, very fun journey. Yeah. A lot of fun. So we are just sort of continuing with the practices, Emma. And what we're doing now, the new version of LAC, I like it. It's really cool. I really think it's cool, and it's more user-friendly. So this week actually, we've planned a data retreat with all our middle leaders. And this is
cool.
Yeah, so this is a practice that we introduced in our school, and we're sort of building on that. So, that's what I mean by data legacy, right? So all our middle leaders, the department leaders, as well as the grade leaders, are going to come together, look at LAC together, look at all the other aspects of data, because we've just literally finished our cycle of past testing, and we finished our cycle of map testing. And I'm like, we've got to get in there, and we've got to sort of use the energy that we've created by this recent cycle of testing and see how we're going to use this recent piece of data to immediately inform our teaching and learning.
Absolutely.
And we have a new visualization now. I'm not sure that it's out in the world, but it lets you put pass and cat 4 together, and catch, like, who is like not performing and not feeling good about school, and pulls those ones. Yeah.
Nice.
It's very
I'm
cool.
gonna close the rooms, Priya, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Because it's nearly, oh my God, it's just 2 minutes, 2 more minutes.
It's okay. We started at like 40, so you've got 10.
Okay.
If you need them, you don't have to take them.
The breakout, you've got 49 seconds until the breakout room's closed.
Okay.
That's really cool. You got data retreat with everyone all together. That would be amazing.
So Faye, what we've done is Sarah and I, we've said no longer are we going to meet GLs and DLs separately.
Love
Everybody's
it.
together because GLs are able to see a perspective that the DLs can't see, and the DLs are able to see
Absolutely.
something that the GLs can't see.
Yeah,
So
vertical, horizontal, yeah.
and so we've got we're like, yes, we're going to do this.
Did
We're
you
going to
do
do this, LEC. We're going to do this. So, yeah.
Really cool.
I just realized we're recording, so this will go in the recording. That world in the future.
Yeah. Hi everyone. We're just nerding out and just being super excited about other things. That's amazing.
I just realized we're still recording and we just had a great chat.
Yeah.
Shabby's gonna love it when she watches this back.
Okay, all right, everybody. I know that you would have liked longer conversations, but unfortunately, time is something we all need as human beings, right? But we don't have it. Correct. Right. So what I would like to do is I would like all of you or some of you to share ideas. Either I'll invite you to, I don't know, Emma, I'm not sure. Invite you to speak, or if you're not able to speak, you can type in the chat in terms of what was the conversation like? A summary of the conversation in your breakout rooms, please. Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think with the permission of my group members, just to summarize what we were discussing, I think all of us were sharing our own view on how we have seen data and how I shared about it being initially a point of, maybe hesitation and discomfort, because when you see this information coming through, you're really not very sure of if you are ready to deal with so much information. So realizing that discomfort and knowing that it's okay to be there. And I think some of us spoke about how collection of data is great, but also creating a culture where you get true data. There is the truth comes out. The children feel comfortable to tell us exactly what they want us to hear and what is going on with them. So I think that's important, because you can collect all the data you want and you may not get the truth. So, or what the children want us to see, and they're hiding or they're uncomfortable. So bringing that out, creating a culture about that. And I think all of us together discussed the idea of why is there a barrier, or what is the possible barrier to data exploration. And I think one of the things is it is an unknown, uncomfortable space, and it is a space that comes with us to know that it's okay to feel that discomfort. It's okay to go into that space and find out that information and then do something about it, rather than to be stuck in a zone of apathy or stuck in a zone of not knowing. So that is what I think our group was trying to, come to. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else would like to share? So keeping this data in mind, what will be your data legacy? That was a provocation. Anybody else would like to share?
Hi, Priya. So I think I'll share on behalf of our group.
Yes,
We had,
please.
I'm Shruti here. We had Benas, Bosco, and Bosco. Can you add on the?
Yeah, I think it was Benaz was there, Komal was there as well.
Yes, yes. So we talked about, we read the article very briefly and talked about how geographical boundaries do not limit learning. So how in that case, data or technology is useful in this time, and how in case of displacement, even with, natural calamities, which are on the, rise in today's world, how we can use data to support student learning. So I guess we focused our attention to the article, the scenario that it presented, and how we are using the tools that we have right now, including the data, to sort of build our understanding and support our learners.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Some great ideas, some great points coming through. Faye, any comments from you?
No, I think it's I guess the notion of understanding that the way the world exists in our the way we know it is not going to be always that way. And I think it's really important, you know, especially with the current news that is happening, that reality of being displaced and that reality of geographical boundaries and perhaps not having access to your home education of what you would know it. That is unfortunately a reality that is happening right now, this second. So I think that's a great point to make, that essentially the future is going to look more, I hope, personalized, inclusive, utilizing technology to make sure that we are all in this together, I hope.
Thank you, Faye. And next slide, please. Okay, so I think we wanted to sort of end our session and end our story and end our journey that, you know, transformative change can only happen when everyone, all of us work together with a shared vision in terms of essentially keeping students, keeping learning, and remembering that at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we're here to serve each other and support each other. And I think that should be our true calling and true purpose when we take on any projects, anything in school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for us? Sorry.
Not at all. Thank you so much, ladies, for really kind of tying it all together and making us think about the human side of it. Does anyone have questions for Faye and Priya? It does. I mean, it's always a good. It's always the sign of a well-developed webinar. I think when you've covered everything so clearly, no one's got questions. For me, it's been really interesting because I've been doing this all week. I've been talking to lots of different schools, and I'm seeing a lot of like commonalities and threads coming through. So I want to do just a really quick plug for ones that you might be interested in looking at next. Related to this. So I was talking to Faye and Priya earlier when you guys were in the breakout rooms. Matt Lennon at eShow has really been looking at this idea of making data norms to make teachers feel safe and trust that the school is going to use their data for good, not ill. And going slow and building that trust before you start making teachers use data and had great success with that. And Chandra McGowan talked yesterday about setting as a school using qualitative data to really be able to define your school's culture. So she did lots of interviews with everybody in the school and came up with the values of the school, and that's what drives their data culture and the way they operate everything, tying it back to the values that they collaborated to create. Jitane talked about using human-centered design and putting the learner at the center of every decision. So lots and lots of really great discussions that I think tie so well with what you guys are talking about as well. And we have a question from James.
Hi, Faye and Priya. I had to ask you a question. So my question is based on what Sarah was saying about how we get accurate data and true data. Whether you have any kind of tips or any useful tricks of how we as teachers can, create those safe spaces in our work, either in the classroom or outside the classroom. Any methods of trying to get a set of accurate data, say if we're looking at PASS, for example. And then if we think about PASS, who are the types of people that should have access to that, whether we share it with all teachers, whether we keep that data for just selective teachers, whether we share it with parents. So just any experience you guys have of that and any thoughts, on that topic.
Great question.
Yeah, great question, James. It's like 6:38 in the morning. No, I think everyone has to understand that any kind of assessment we do is just like taking a photograph in that 1 second when the kids press submit. So the notion of true data is that, okay, it would have been true in that moment, because even if the kids have just flicked through it super mega speedy, that's a sign actually of how they're feeling, right? That they are feeling like, oh, this is just a random little well-being survey, I don't care. That enough is actual data, right? The fact that that kid is sitting there not caring about it and just spamming the next button, that's a flag, right? That's something that you can really look at. And I think that that's been a real awakening for me, is understanding that, you know, as teachers, we go into our classrooms. I was a music teacher. I go into my classroom and I just kind of, we're going to perform today. You do this and you do this and you do this, and kind of them putting that pressure on in that moment. But now my mindset is so much different in terms of agency, in terms of choice, and in terms of really thinking about the purpose of why I'm assessing in that moment. What am I assessing, and how is it actually going to benefit the kids, right? When actually, I think the majority of the time, formative feedback and having those conversations and that, you know, that qualitative data, Emma, that you were talking about, I think is actually of more value, to be honest, 9 times out of 10. And education needs to kind of catch up with that in terms of it is the formative conversation that is going to hopefully have the most impact with everybody, colleagues, families, and kids. In terms of sharing the data, I've never shared past data with families, because I kind of see it as the parents really need to have that understanding and knowledge of what this past data is saying. And I also, I don't know how to get over the notion that kids feeling pressurized to select the answers that they think their parents want them to select, that type of mindset. So personally, I don't have any experience sharing past data with students or with parents, but in terms of class teachers, I really truly believe that past data can help inform any academic intervention, any academic assessment. I truly believe that understanding a child's, you know, how they feel about themselves in school can only serve and benefit them.
Yeah, I just want to sort of add on to what Faye said in terms of, you know, when they're speeding through the past data or any kind of survey, is it because they have given up? They like think, oh, this is just another survey, another test. What's that going to do anyway? So they really, I think we've got to recognize that perhaps they're coming from a zone of apathy. Right? Because they've given up on themselves, they've given up on teachers, they've given up on the school. No matter what I do, no matter what survey I take, they're never going to be able to help me. They're really in the zone of apathy. And I think that is where we need to start with. Oh, they're in the zone of apathy. This is how they feel, perhaps. Okay, don't make any assumptions, because that could be a reality, but that couldn't be the reality. So, and I think really start from there. And I think it goes back to what kind of relationships have you built in your school culture, right? What is a relationship teacher to teacher? What is a relationship leaders to teachers? Again, relation to students, inter-student relationships. So I think that plays a sort of a very strong role. And I think at the end of the day, going back to what Faye said in terms of, do the parents trust the school, right? It's all about that at the end of the day. If the parents trust the school and the school processes and protocols and the culture of the school, then are we at a place to share that data? And how can we engage with all the stakeholders within the school to be able to share that data and not be judgmental about it, and not be in a zone of anxiety, but really move to a zone of learning? Yeah.
Can I say too that I think we need to look at our own role in how students are feeling about tests, because, you know, how much of that spamming that some students are doing is because the teacher administering the test is going, well, we could be learning math today, but we're going to have to do this past test instead, you know, and how are we showing that we value what our students think and feel? Either you know, externally, like in my very you know, exaggerated example, or just you know, implicitly. And just one more tiny thing I want to mention as well is this idea of celebrating student success and thinking about what we're doing well rather than dwelling on what we've still got to go. That's something that I covered in my talk on Wednesday. So about using appreciative inquiry in the classroom, but then also in your developing a data culture. So yeah, Shruti has a question as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the lovely discussion. I had a quick question about, how did you guys start? Okay, because I'm thinking that as teachers, we are swinging between data from standardized tests, which is mostly quantitative, and we are talking about unlearning and moving to a culture which is more qualitative, more contextual in terms of understanding students. So to have, like a core group or even start these conversations in your community, okay, what seed did you sow to get it all started, okay? Where did it all begin? Can you all share a little bit on that, please?
I can start, and then I would like to sort of invite everybody who's participating in this in this conversation to fill in the dots in this journey, because all of you have been a part of this journey. So I think essentially, Shruti, what happened was we were we didn't know what to do with data, and I think there was a concerted effort from leadership at school in order to make OIS a school where data was used to inform teaching and learning practices. Okay, and I think that was the question. It is like, what is the data we have, and how can we use that data to inform our teaching and learning, right? And I think that question sort of challenged us and provoked us out of our comfort zone, in terms of the data wasn't going to be used to beat anybody with a stick. It was really essentially about improving teaching and learning at school. And I think so then what happened was we sort of, it evolved almost organically. We were like, yeah, we are having all these data conversations. We're doing all these standardized tests, but what next? Like, we just have the test and then do nothing with it. How can we do this? So then we said we need a community of people in order to help us carry the school forward in this journey. So we started with the idea of inviting people to be a part of this learning journey with us, with the creation of Great Ideas Group. So it was essentially an email that was sent out to the entire secondary and say, we're doing this. We don't know what we're doing, but we're going to be doing something with data. Essentially, it was as simple as that. And then we made it fun, didn't we, Faye? We made it like, we had a questionnaire for people and we said, who are you? What is your learning goal? And if you were given a wish, which superpower would you like to have? For example, it was as silly and as organic as that. So that's how we started. And then in the first year, we had like, I think 8 people who joined us in our crazy journey. And then we sort of had like a rallying cry in terms of, let's make data our supernatural power, right? And I think as the work of the Gigs group got known, got recognized and celebrated in the community, we had more people join the party, essentially join the data superpower party. So I think the seed essentially was driven by the strategic direction of the school, in terms of, we're investing in so many tools, in so many things to do with data, but what about it? Essentially, that was a question. Faye, anybody else wants to add to that?
I think the other thing, that the motto that we kept on saying was, we are developing the role of the teacher beyond content delivery.
Correct. Yeah,
that was our mantra over and over and over again. And the people on this call are essentially the people that did it. It wasn't actually Priya and I putting it into practice. You know, it's Bosco, it's James, it's Komal, it's Devanshi, it's Benaz. These guys are the ones that actually then took that and put it into practice and made it a reality, because their passion is pastoral care, their passion is well-being, their passion is looking at the holistic development of every child, the social emotional learning. And that is really, really hard work. And you don't get standardized tests for that, right? You don't get a gold star where it's like, oh, you've just got 100% on that, congratulations, well done. This is kind of, it's really labor intensive, actually, the work of pastoral leaders. But I really believe that in any international school, any school, that if you really hone in on your people who have the love and support and the vision for every single one of these kids as them not only reaching their potential but exceeding it, if you can get them in a room together and you empower them, that they have the knowledge, they have the understanding to really go out there and make a difference, I promise you they will. They absolutely will, because this team, honestly, this team here, the dream team, amazing.
And I think we started from a place of really empowering everybody, empowering and trusting. And I think sort of we were not shy to, oh, I'm rubbish at this, can you help me? Like I think that authenticity and that genuine need for belonging and for caring about the students and caring about each other really drove this mission forward. And I think had we not created a culture of belonging and trust, I don't think we would have got anywhere. I really think it was like, we want to do this, we're passionate about data, but we don't know what we're doing. Come and join the journey and let's figure this out ourselves. I mean, it was as simple as that. Like, I think we were very honest, very vulnerable. Yeah.
Power of vulnerability.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just echo that and support everything, Faye and Priya said. And I think the grade leaders felt that they had permission to make their own decisions, they had autonomy, and that we really didn't get a no to anything that we asked. So we never felt there was a wrong type of question, and that we were given a space where we could be ourselves, try new ideas. We never really got no, we never got told to not do something. We were always given permission to do things. And I think that gave us the agency to move forward and bring those ideas forward as well.
Yeah, I just want to add to what James said. Even giving the opportunity to go ahead with the PDs and empower other leaders who are more focused towards helping out students and completing the data story, and even helping us with the PD we had with Matthew Savage, where we could understand much more better how students react in different situations and how to unreveal the mask behind them. So it was a great journey, I would say. Yeah, Smita, you would want to add?
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that I was one of the fortunate in the group of first 8 people who joined that group. We had our share of fun because we didn't know. That I think the factor of trust started from there. It was about giving us that space to explore, to be able to make mistakes, and whatever ideas we brought to the table was always it was looked at very positively. It was looked at an avenue or a chance to develop, a chance to learn, and we collated all our ideas, and that's how we. One thing that I personally realized is the value of looking at human emotions, looking at empathy, looking at so many other factors, which was always present. But I started to look at it from a very different perspective, and that helped me to understand my students better. And that also helped me to realize or to detect any possible students who may be going who may be going through some kind of a situation in their lives, and because of which it is indirectly or directly impacting their academic performances and things like that. So the GIGS group, that is the Great Ideas group, was a wonderful initiative, I think, which was started by these 2 great human beings. And it has really benefited me personally. And I have also been, I'm sure all of us who joined, and then I'm not sure, Faye or Priya, one of them said in the beginning that by the end, it just grew to around 35 to 40 people. And then they were so motivated and fascinated with the way we were given the leverage and the liberty to do things the way we want, and make mistakes and be able to work on those mistakes. And that is how I think the culture of trust and belongingness is built. So that's something which is really very precious, and I will always cherish that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So, I really think that we kept going. Like, we asked gigs volunteers to lead PD sessions. Then when last year was our first year of introducing MAP in middle school. And, I didn't know anything about MAP. I was just like reading everything on the NWEA website. I was going to Ganilla, my colleague in primary, was like, teach me MAP. I don't know anything about this. Help me, help me, help me. And then I would bring those questions and those resources to the gigs group and say, I got this part, but I don't really know if I understand this part. Help me. Let us all figure out MAP together. So we did that. And then it was fascinating to see in late October. So September was our first round of MAP last year. And in October, November, we decided to lead a full meeting devoted to MAP, 120 teachers. And I was like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to do this? And then Faye and I said, we're going to use gigs volunteers to lead MAP. So we did the initial sort of 20 minutes with the whole staff, and then we split them up into individual groups. Each group had a gig volunteer who led the MAP unpacking in their little 10 groups. And, and I think that was an eye-opener for me. I was like, oh my goodness, this is more powerful than I imagined it to be. Like, the power of sharing and learning together, and really realizing that, it's okay. It's okay that you don't know everything, but you can figure it out. I think it's really about growth mindset as a school, not as an individual, if I can say that. And I really think it started with self-compassion and kindness. Okay, like I don't know this, but it's okay. I can learn about it. It's not the end of the world, So if I can learn about it, and I have to start with a place of compassion and kindness to myself, and use that same compassion and kindness to the other people around me. And I think that's where it starts from. Yeah. Okay, I could go on and on and on, but I'm sure. Thank you.
It's so great to hear just how inspiring you all are. I really hope that next time we do this, we hear from like everybody in this group. I would love to see everyone sharing a webinar about how you're using data in your classroom. It'd be so great because it's such a you've created such a thriving culture and that distributed leadership, and it's really inspiring to see that in action. Thank you all for coming and supporting Pray and Fear. I need to go back to bed, guys. And I'm going to stop the recording now.